We reserve this as a pleasant surprise to our boss because, I said it in my speech that he served as Minister of Information, and by our statute, he is supposed to have been conferred with that honorary fellowship because you cannot supervise those that are ahead of you. He served as the supervising Minister of Information, and he ought to have immediately been conferred with that honorary fellowship so that he can supervise the fellows and so on. So after we spoke in June last year, and he explained that he wasn't able to join us at the anniversary, Council said we should reserve it for this year. But because of his kind of person, that if we told him that we are going to do this, he won't come. So we kept it away from him until it's PR. PR is understanding your operating environment and knowing how to deal with the issues. That's what our elder said. So on that note, I want to invite our minister, our supervising minister. It takes a minister to confer fellowship on another minister. And then I invite Professor Jerry Ghana. I invite fellow Frank Mweke II. I invite fellow Labaram Maku. I invite fellow Lai Mohammed. These are ministers who are already fellows of the Institute to come and receive the latest fellow of the Institute. So this time around, I will stay away so that the elders will confer.
I take my acceptance for granted.
Yes. So you do this.
And now the conferment on the very distinguished former president of Ohaneze Ndigbo, former Minister of Information and Culture, former Minister of Civil Aviation. He was born on the 11th of December 1952 in Igbo-Etiti, Enugu State, Nigeria. Had his education at the University of London. And a lawyer, an economist, and a politician of repute. Chief John Nnia Nwodo is a distinguished Nigerian by every regard, now decorated as a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. It takes fellows to decorate a fellow.
With the authority conferred on me by NIPR Decree 16 of 1st June 1990, now cited as Cap N114, Laws of the Federation 2004, I hereby confer on Chief John Nnia Nwodo, Fellow of the Institute.
And now,
thank you very much.
And now, before you is Chief John Nnia Nwodo, Fellow of the NIPR, Commander of the Niger. Please give him a round of applause.
All right, we'll now listen to our honorary fellow.
Mr. Chairman, sir, may I respectfully rest on already established protocol. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am surprised. I would have said no, but with all the mouthpieces that speak to the public in Nigeria here, I would have been gravely misunderstood. I believe in a life of service, not the appurtenances that go with it. Well, I want to thank you for this program, but I want to express great disappointment that you did not use this program to speak to the likes of him and the likes of the speaker who left here, not in criticism, but in a reflection of what the people think. Honorable Minister, I live in a rural area in Ukehe, in Enugu State. I also live in Enugu, and I oscillate between those two homes. I speak with villagers. I listened to the head of channels when he spoke here. His speech, of all the speeches I had here, touched me. Our people are bleeding. Anybody who pretends to you that is not so is not telling you the truth. As Minister of Information, I was the most combative minister in the Executive Council. I said the things the ordinary man said on the streets. I stopped the Minister of Internal Affairs from reading a national registration program that was going to use obsolete technology 3 or 4 months before we handed over government. He had lobbied me not to speak. I almost agreed because he sat next to me. As you know, we sit in alphabetical order. And industry sits on your left and industry on your right. And I said, no, I can't. And it was obvious that the head of state saw me shaking my head and he ordered me to speak. And when I spoke with statistics, with currency of development of the technology, with the exaggerated cost of the program, I destroyed the memo. It was not something I could say publicly, but I felt it was, if I was going to confront the public on their criticism of government, I better begin to criticize government inside. And I made sure that my wife was happy that night because I was so ecstatic. Well, I have to say, gentlemen, our country is bleeding. When I was sitting here and listening to the speeches and saw the speaker go without hearing speeches like this and that of yours, sir, I felt sad, but I'm happy that you are here. Sir, the only thing I can say to you is to compare my upbringing with the upbringing of our children now. At the time I went to primary school, I was 5 years old because I was taller than a 5-year-old. But you know, we spent 7 years then in the primary school. We had infant 1 and 2 before you started in standard 1 to 6. And if you were lucky in standard 5 and could pass to secondary school, you don't do standard 6 like I was. My classmate in infant 1 was Peter Enejere, the junior brother of my father's driver. My father was a regional minister under Zik and under Akwara. There was no school for the minister's child or the driver's child. We went there because there was a reverend minister who was renowned for moral probity and instructional style that was didactic. He later became Bishop Michael Enejere. He taught us well. Today, I have paid for my cook's daughter to go in a kindergarten school in the GRA where I live in Enugu, so that she will not be a victim of what the Renaissance Society has imposed on us. A cook's child cannot go to a good school. A driver's child cannot go to a good school. In fact, my governor has started a renaissance development in Enugu that has computer schools at every ward in Enugu State, so that the ordinary child has computer technology right from the beginning. When I went to a secondary school, sir, 2 of my father's recipients of my father's scholarship were my classmates. They were beating me in physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. And I was beating them in English language, literature, history, Bible knowledge. But they were beating me in objective subjects, and I was beating them in subjective subjects. Consequently, their position in class was better than mine. So when they became 1st to 6th, and I was struggling to be 7 to 12 out of a class of 30, 35. My father told me in Igbo that those that their father courtesy to me, you will eventually courtesy to them. I told him it's impossible. He said, beat them in class. Oga, I went to secondary school and had this humiliation. I had to buckle up because the standard was equal. The accessibility was equal for everyone. I went to University of Ibadan at the end of the Nigerian Civil War. And I dared to contest for President of Students Union against a Yoruba candidate. So soon after I was a Biafran soldier. But I befriended a Yoruba girl. and she brought the Yoruba girls to my campaign. And I turned the campaign intellectual. But at the speech night, my guardian, who was the student affairs officer, Mr. Babalola, violated the rules of engagement by calling my opponent to speak before me, in spite of the fact that we were being called in order of the time of return of nomination form. When Adoboro finished speaking, he started to sing in Yoruba, T1 T-wow, our own is our own. That hurt the Yoruba students. They felt that they were being disgraced by their own. When I got up to speak, I neglected all that. But my brother had written a thesis on the role of United Nations and international organizations in the achievement of world peace in LSE, where I later went to read law. And my father forced all of us to read that thesis and to summarize it in 10 pages. So I took extracts of the lecture, of the thesis. My brother had described the conflict in the OAU by saying that in view of its central position in Africa, the Congo was like a continental political volcano. Accordingly, when it erupted, seismic waves rippled across the continent. The OAU was the first victim. It split into the Casablanca and the Monrovia blocks. So I said the University of Ibadan, in view of its premier position in the development of institutions of higher learning in Nigeria, is like a national educational volcano. In fact, when Ibadan sneezes, the rest of the universities in Nigeria catch cold. And my rhetoric captured the imagination of the students. And one female student I didn't know, jumped on me and kissed me in front of everybody. But I never saw her again after that. Honorable Minister, you are sitting on a very delicate job. I was combative in Executive Council, representing the views of the opposition. He took the opposition. He, His Excellency. We used to gang up against military governments that were bad. This is your job. Talk to Nigerians and talk to the governments. People are not happy. I pity your situation, but we can do better. Ike, thank you for this honor and privilege.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
May I quickly invite